For decades, governments around the world have worked hard to keep their UFO files locked away. They said it was for national security, but once some of those documents slipped out, the public realized just how strange and unsettling these cases really were. From secret military encounters to unexplainable radar blips, these are the government UFO files that officials probably wish we'd never seen. War zones are chaotic, of course, but nothing explains what American forces saw over Mosul in 2016. The US MC-12 surveillance aircraft, built to scan the battlefield for threats, recorded a strange metallic orb gliding across the sky. It wasn't darting around erratically, it moved with a steady purpose, holding its altitude perfectly. The video only lasts about 4 seconds, but experts later said it was one of the clearest military recorded UFO clips ever captured in a combat zone. The file was eventually released after an FOIA request, showing the mysterious sphere flying over Iraqi airspace where no drone or aircraft was reported. Military analysts admitted they had no explanation for this. Skeptics were stunned by how clean and solid the object looked. Unlike blurry lights in the sky, this was undeniable. A crisp, official government-recorded UFO video of one of the most tightly monitored areas in the world. One of the strangest UFO reports to ever come out comes from a declassified CIA translation of a KGB file. According to the document, Soviet troops in Ukraine allegedly fired at a UFO that had intruded into restricted airspace. The craft crashed and strange humanoid figures emerged. And if that wasn't strange enough, witnesses then claimed the beings emitted a blinding flash of light, instantly turning 23 soldiers into stone. The bodies were supposedly transported to a Moscow research facility where they vanished into secrecy. CIA archived the document in 1993 and released it to the public in 2000. Even if exaggerated, the fact that the CIA took the KGB report seriously enough to translate and file it is pretty interesting. It shows how UFO encounters weren't just American problems. They terrified the Soviets too, with stories that sounded more like science fiction than military intelligence. In 1946, Scandinavia was shaken by a wave of unexplained aerial sightings. Thousands of reports poured in from Sweden, Finland, and Norway of rocket-shaped objects streaking across the skies. They didn't behave like meteors. Some maneuvered, hovered, or crashed into lakes. Swedish authorities recovered fragments, but they never identified their origin. Radar confirmed many of the sightings, which immediately alarmed governments. Were these Soviet weapon tests, secret German technology left over from the war, or something else entirely? Investigators combed through reports but failed to find a clear answer. Declassified files revealed just how seriously officials took the events, though. These weren't crazy farmer stories. This was a full-scale aerial mystery unfolding over multiple countries at once. Between 1952 and 1969, the US Air Force ran Project Blue Book, investigating over 12,000 UFO reports. Officials insisted most were explained, but buried in the files are also hundreds of unknowns that could not be dismissed. One of the most chilling cases came in 1957, when radar operators at several Texas Air Force bases tracked strange craft moving at impossible speeds. Pilots scrambled to intercept them, but the UFOs easily outran the jets before vanishing. The final report ended with a cold note. Unexplained. When Project Blue Book was finally declassified, researchers discovered how many of these kinds of reports were quietly swept aside. The public was told nothing to see here, while inside the files sat undeniable evidence that some cases defied every explanation the Air Force could think of. During the Cold War, Norway was a frontline NATO country bordering the Soviet Union, which made it the perfect place to watch for enemy aircraft. But in the 1950s, NATO radar operators detected something no Soviet jet could pull off. A declassified CIA file describes glowing objects appearing near a Norwegian base. They shot upward at incredible speed, darted sideways, and then vanished completely from radar. The report noted something eerie. The objects seemed to deliberately avoid being locked on radar, as if they knew they were being tracked. For decades, this case sat buried until a Freedom of Information request pulled it into the light. What makes it so unsettling is how it shows UFOs weren't just weird lights in the desert. They were actively buzzing strategic NATO sites in one of the tensest times in history. If UFOs are harmless, why do they keep showing up around nuclear weapons? In March 1967, at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, went offline in seconds. At that very moment, guards reported a glowing red object hovering silently over the silo field. Declassified Air Force documents confirmed the missile shutdown really happened. Engineers were baffled. There was no technical fault that could explain so many systems failing at once. Decades later, retired officers testified publicly that UFOs had interfered with America's nuclear arsenal more than once. Malmstrom files remain some of the most terrifying evidence that whatever UFOs are, they seem to have an interest in the most dangerous weapons humanity has ever. Unlike grainy cell phone UFO clips, this case came straight from a military helicopter. A Chilean Navy crew using an infrared camera tracked a dark, solid object moving across the sky for more than 10 minutes. At one point, the object emitted a strange plume of material that didn't match any known exhaust signature. Air traffic controllers confirmed no planes were in the area, and radar couldn't detect it at all. Chile's official government UFO research body, CEFAA, spent 2 years analyzing the video before admitting they had no explanation for it. When the footage was finally released, it stunned researchers around the world. This wasn't a rumor or a story. It was hard evidence collected by trained military personnel showing an object performing beyond human technology. In the early 50s, Canadian engineer Wilbert Smith had conversations with top US officials about UFO research. What he learned shocked him enough to write a memo that was stamped top secret. According to Smith, UFOs were considered by the US government the most highly classified subject, outranking even the hydrogen bomb. He also reported that American scientists were actively studying UFO propulsion systems and that the phenomenon was real. The memo sat locked away until it was declassified decades later. When it surfaced, it revealed just how seriously the subject was treated in private, compared to the dismissive public stance. To Smith, UFOs weren't a curiosity, they were a matter of national priority. For decades, the Pentagon denied investigating UFOs, but in 2017, the truth leaked out. A secret program called AATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ran from 2007 to 2012 with a budget of $22 million. Its mission was to study UFO encounters reported by pilots, radar operators, and military personnel. Some files described craft that appeared to warp space itself, displaying what analysts called anti-gravity effects. Videos of objects like the now famous Tic Tac UFOs were part of its archives. When reporters exposed AATIP, the Pentagon was forced to admit the program was real. Overnight, UFOs went from fringe conspiracy to front-page news, opening the floodgates to further disclosures. And finally, one of the most mysterious government-held UFO files of all, the Calvine photographs. In August of 1990, 2 hikers in Scotland snapped 6 photographs of this massive diamond-shaped UFO hovering near their location. A Harrier jet was reportedly seen nearby, possibly escorting or monitoring whatever this object was. Photos were turned over to a newspaper, which in turn handed them to the Ministry of Defense, and for more than 30 years they disappeared. Only in 2022 did one of the images finally surface through the National Archives. Analysts confirmed that the photo wasn't faked either, and MOD insiders admitted the craft was never identified. To this day, no one knows what the Calvine UFO really was. One thing is clear, the government never wanted those photos to see the light of day. I've been your host James, and I will catch you, yes you specifically, next time.